Hello and welcome back to AR77. A bit of a comparison video for you now. This time around I've got the Glock 17 Gen 4 on the table. That's a BB pistol by Umarex, and I have the Glock 17 Gen 5 pellet version on the table. This is also by Umarex. Both really good replicas, both really enjoyable pistols to shoot. I've done a review on both of these pistols. But when I was recently reviewing the Glock 17 Gen 5, the pellet version, I said I would do a separate video where I compared the kind of the cosmetic differences between the two pistols over and above that which is obvious. For instance, this is a pellet magazine, 21 round pellet magazine. It does house the CO2 and the pellets in the same mag. With the Glock 17 Gen 4, this is a BB pistol, full size dropout mag once again. It's perhaps a bit more realistic because it's got everything closed away behind metal, and you've got these kind of ammo indicators here. But other than the magazines, let's talk about the differences between these two pistols and the more sort of noticeable aesthetic differences. Let's start at the business end, at the kind of the muzzle end. So if you look at the Glock 17 Gen 4, we have quite a squared off end to the slide there, as you can see. Very angular, very square, lots of kind of almost like right angles, and it's quite characteristic of kind of traditionally Glock styling. If we look at the end of the 17 Gen 5, you can see that there's a taper to that, meaning it's probably easier to pop back in a holster. If you need to get that away and get it aligned more easily, you've got that kind of tapered end to it. We also have a clear difference here in terms of these two air pistols. The real steel wouldn't share this difference, but these two air pistols, there's far more of a recess in the BB version here, the Gen 4, than there is the Gen 5 pellet version. I don't have a pellet version of the Gen 4 or a BB version of the Gen 5 to make that other comparison. Apologies. So this is just from the pistols that I have in my collection. We can also see here that we have more classic kind of smooth slide to the Glock 17 Gen 4 there, whereas on the Gen 5 we've got these front serrations, which in reality would allow you to make a little, little slide check there, see if you've got one in the chamber, and different people like to cock the pistol in different ways. In terms of the air pistol version, it doesn't make much of a difference other than the fact that it's nice, if it is a replica, for it to be an accurate replica. You might kind of say, well, I prefer simplicity, so I like the smooth slide to the Gen 4, or you might say, actually, I want it to look a bit more robust, a bit more tactical, at which point I would say the Gen 5 possibly just edges and wins that particular race. Okay, what else do we have? Yeah, I said in the review I did of the Gen 5 that the white dot at the front, again, I'm struggling to get it to show you, the white dot at the front of that is a little smaller than, yeah, you see they'll just focus on the white dot there. That's a little smaller, doesn't show up just as obvious as the white dot at the front of the Gen 4. Again, as I said in my review of the Gen 5, that could just be these two particular guns. It might be that a bit more paint ended up on this one and a bit less ended up on this one. While we're on sights, what I would say with if you look at the Gen 4, look at the rear sight picture, you can see you've got that kind of half picture frame there. And you've got the same thing on the Gen 5, but if I hold them up next to each other, you'll see that the Gen 5, the actual kind of blade itself is a bit narrower. The sight picture, I think, is a comparable size, but the thing that the sight picture is on, this kind of blade here, sits a little higher and is a little closer towards the center of the slide. It doesn't kind of follow the lines. You can see that the line here follows right down and then around, whereas on the Gen 5 this rear sight comes down and then it comes out and around. That makes no difference to me. The fact that this is slightly higher does mean that you're going to have to, to get the same sight picture, the tip of the pistol, the muzzle of the pistol, is going to be at a it's going to push it up as you're aiming. To get that dot in there, you have to push the muzzle of the pistol up a little bit further. So I don't know. I need to do some testing with that. Does this pistol shoot slightly higher than this one? Did they realise that the pistol was shooting low a little bit, and therefore they've put a higher blade on it, just to try and compensate for that? Has none of that thought gone into it, and that's just how they make the Glocks nowadays? I don't know. It's just again a cosmetic detail that I thought I would take time to point out to you. What else? Okay, so as we come around the pistol, we have this kind of thumb rest here for if you're right-handed. Well, if you're left-handed, has one too. But we have this thumb rest, and I would say that is a deeper indentation on the Gen 4 than it is on the Gen 5. That could just purely be my perception, but I feel like that's not just as deep, not just as significant as it is on the Gen 4. If I try and move my thumb over that, it seems to struggle more than it does if I move it over that one. So that might be something to do with people releasing the mag of the Gen 4. They just want to make that a bit more subtle. I don't know. Again, for all of this stuff, as I said, at the start of when I, created the channel, I'm not an expert on this stuff necessarily. I'm just an enthusiast. So I really value you informing me and educating me on all of this stuff. If there is no difference, I'm happy to hear that. If there is, I'm interested, generally in these things. So please feel free to let me know if you're an airgun enthusiast, or even more so, really, if you have the real steel. I always like hearing from my brothers and sisters in the States who have the real steel, and they talk about their experience as using these as sometimes as training pistols. So what else do we have? Okay, yeah, here's a subtle one. Look at the mag release on the Gen 4 here, and you've got this kind of, if I hold it like that, it's quite an angled thing. It's like a right angle to go around there. If you look at the mag release on the Gen 5, I don't know if you're going to pick, watch out, there's more of a curve to it. It kind of curves around more, it seems to me. That seems like a greater level of curve to that mag release than there is on the Gen 4. That's a more significant kind of drop off. So that's another detail there. While we're in this sort of area, there's one of the other more obvious points we have on the Gen 4. Obviously, these kind of contoured finger grooves here, so that your middle finger can get right up there under the trigger guard, and then you've got these further two zones really for your ring finger, or that, whatever that's called, and your little finger. We don't have that on the Gen 5. Just a flat front to the grip there. The serrations on this one, not serrations, rather, the stippling on the Gen 5, to me, feels, and it's very similar, but it feels slightly more aggressive, slightly rougher than on the Gen 4. Having said that, I also have to sort of put that with the caveat that I've had this pistol longer, so it's been handled more often, and it might be something that they've just taken a bit of aging, a bit of use, so they're not as aggressive as these. I do try and keep my pistols in very good condition. I do look after them. I don't put them down in soil. I like them to stay looking as they were when I got them out of the box for as much of their life as I can. But overuse, things will, you'll get scratches here on your slides, especially when they blow back, and in various places on the pistol. But yeah, I feel like that's a bit more aggressive on the Gen 5 than it is on the Gen 4. What else did I notice? Well, obviously, the difference between these two particular pistols, the BB pistol, the Gen 4 here, that's a 19-round capacity, as opposed to a 21-round capacity in the pellet version, which is, I like that because I find pellets are more accurate, and yet often with pellet pistols, you are sacrificing capacity, whereas with this and a couple of other of the more modern pellet pistols, you're still getting the blowback, and yet you're not sacrificing that capacity. In fact, you've got more capacity here, 21 as opposed to 19. And although this doesn't lock back, you do have that open kind of ejection port there, which is a nice touch. Similar with the Gen 4, but this will, of course, after the last round, this will lock back, keeping that ejection port open. Both really nice pistols. This has a slightly longer trigger. I think that's because it's a pellet version also. This is a kind of a proper single action pistol. Once it's cocked, you're just releasing it. This, even when it's cocked, that trigger is doing a little more. I need to check that again, because it does feel like it's just releasing it there. Although I don't have the mag in, it does have to cycle the mag round, to be honest. So it's not, I wouldn't call that full single action, more like a hybrid almost. But that's a proper single action, so it's got a slightly less travel to the trigger, as you can see there, sort of physically. Flared Magwell on the Gen 5. You can see, let me do this on camera. You can see there's the flares in the bottom of that, as opposed to that straight Magwell on the Gen 4 there. So let's keep them on the right sides, and then you don't get confused. So the Gen 4, where the mag goes in, it sits kind of flush with the rest of the pistol. With the Gen 5, the mag goes in, and it's got that flaring to it. So if you have to do quick changes or anything like that, you wanted to practice quick changes, you might be better off with the Gen 5 if you're using it as a training tool. You might prefer that. Obviously, if you've got a Gen 4 for real, you don't want to be practicing an easier mag change than you have in real life. I'm guessing. I don't know, but that would seem logical to me that you'd want to practice with the type that you have. One other thing is, I think the Gen 4 BB version, it's almost like a grey colour, like a charcoal, similar to the BB version of the what's it called now? HK USP. There we go. The HK USP has kind of got a grey feel to it, and this has a similar, not just as light as the HK USP, but it does feel grey when you put it next to this kind of darker, more true black colour. I don't necessarily mean true to the real steel, but it's a darker colour. It's definitely black as opposed to a kind of almost a grey charcoal kind of finish. What else? The only other thing that I can think of, again, feel free to tell me if you know of any other differences, is with the magazines. So if I'll show you the Gen 5 magazine there, you can see it's got that kind of taper to it at the front of the plate there. With the Gen 4 magazine, it just finishes straight. So it's a slightly different profile. Once it's in the pistol, you can see that that's flat and flush. With the Gen 5, you can see there's a slight angle to that magazine. I think that's it. I think that's all the differences I can come up with. Again, with both these pistols, you've got these kind of safety lockout things at the front, so you can completely disengage the pistol. You can fit a torch or a laser to the front of each of these pistols. Both take CO2 and ammunition in the magazine. Both lovely pistols, pellet or CO2, Gen 4, Gen 5. Hope that has helped illustrate some of the differences between what Glock decided for the Gen 4 and what they decided for the Gen 5. If you know why they made any of those differences, apart from some of the more obvious ones like the Magwell, if you know anything about why they changed how those sights look, please feel free to give us a shout in the comments and educate me. Always happy to hear from people who know more than I do, which is, let's be honest, most of you. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with the channel. Hope you're all well out there in internet land. Please do stay safe. Take care. All the best. Bye.